All right, let's talk about a really big idea that's starting to get some serious traction. What if a state just got rid of property taxes altogether? Today, we're going to break down a real proposal that could completely change how our communities are funded.
So, let's just start with that one huge question. What would actually happen if a state decided to completely eliminate property taxes for homeowners? I mean, it sounds pretty revolutionary, maybe even a little crazy, but it's an idea being seriously debated right now.
Okay, so first up, let's really get into the weeds of this radical proposal. At its heart, it's about fundamentally shifting the entire relationship between homeowners and the government.
The big idea is to completely get rid of that annual property tax bill for anyone living in their main home. You can imagine the appeal here, right? It's huge, both financially and emotionally. The idea of truly owning your home, free and clear, without that constant tax payment hanging over your head.
But here's the thing, getting this passed is a huge mountain to climb. This isn't some simple law that can just be passed. No, this would require changing the state's constitution. That means it has to clear the legislature first and then get a supermajority of 60% of voters to approve it. That is a very, very high bar. So, that begs the question, right? Why is this all happening now? Well, this idea didn't just appear out of thin air. It's a direct reaction to some really intense economic pressure that's squeezing homeowners at the moment. And here, you can see the problem in black and white. Over the last few years, we've seen this massive surge in home values. They've just shot through the roof. But, and this is the key part, average household incomes, well, they haven't grown nearly as fast. That creates this huge, painful gap. This brings us to a really important concept, the unrealized gain. It sounds a little technical, but it's actually pretty simple. Homeowners are getting tax bills based on wealth that only exists on paper. They haven't sold their house, they haven't cashed in on that higher value, but their taxes keep going up as if they have. You know, there's a quote that just perfectly sums up the frustration out there. People are saying it feels like they're renting from the government. Imagine that. You've paid off your mortgage decades ago, you own your home free and clear, but you're still getting this ever-increasing bill from the state, almost like rent. And this brings us to the giant multi-billion-dollar puzzle at the center of this whole debate. If you get rid of one of the main ways the government makes money, how in the world do you pay for all the public services we rely on? And this is the critical trade-off. We have to remember that property taxes aren't just some abstract number. They are literally the lifeblood of our local communities. They're what pay for our schools, for law enforcement, for fire departments, all those essential services. And the scale of this financial hole is just staggering. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars in revenue that would simply vanish from state and local budgets every single year. You can't just fill that kind of gap with a few small changes. Okay, so how could a state possibly make up for all that lost money? Let's take a look at the proposed solutions, because every single one of them comes with its own major trade-off. So there are four main ideas on the table. The one that gets talked about the most is raising the state sales tax. The problem is, that's what's known as a regressive tax. It hits lower-income families the hardest, since they spend a bigger chunk of their money on everyday goods. The other ideas, like new fees or taxes on tourists, either don't raise anywhere near enough money or the revenue is just too unpredictable to count on.
So when you boil it all down, what you're really looking at is a massive tax shift. The tax burden doesn't just disappear, right? It just moves from one group to another. Homeowners benefit, for sure, but who pays? Well, renters for one. They get zero benefit from the property tax cut, but they'd have to pay more for everything they buy. Tourists and local businesses would also end up footing a much larger part of the bill.
And this is where it gets really serious, because experts are warning that if the state can't fully replace that revenue, and that is a very big if, the consequences could be severe. We're talking about potential cuts to school budgets, less funding for police and fire departments, and crumbling roads. And this would likely hit small towns and rural counties the hardest,
since they have a smaller sales tax base to begin with.
So let's just pull back for a second and look at the big picture here. This proposal isn't just about a tax cut. It's a fundamental choice about how we, as a society, want to fund our communities and who should be responsible for paying for it all.
And that's what makes this whole thing so groundbreaking. If this passes, the state would essentially become a massive economic experiment. It would be the first of its size to completely ditch property taxes in favor of a consumption-based model. You can bet that every other state in the country will be watching very, very closely to see what happens.
And that really leaves us with the fundamental question at the heart of this entire debate. Is it more fair to fund our communities based on the value of the property people own? Or is it more fair to fund them based on what people buy and consume? There is absolutely no easy answer to that, but it's a question that gets right to the very core of our social contract.